Salutations, I'm Jesco, and you're watching Game Dev Made Easy. And in the video today, we're going to talk a little bit more about documenting your code. I went over a bit in my last live stream, but it's time to go a bit deeper into it and showcase the results of that work to all of you. I have two projects that will specifically introduce the concepts of this video. The first one is the House Asset Pack from the Unity store. This asset pack has standard comments for documentation. The second one is the 2.5 dimension platformer engine. This one actually has the proper XML documentation within it, as I showcased writing it in the live stream. For those of you that aren't familiar with the styles of comments you can do in the C# language, let me give you a quick rundown. When you do 2 forward slashes, it will produce a single line comment. This is good for commenting out a line of code during the debug process, but it can also be used to give much needed context about code you've written. When you do a forward slash and an asterisk at the beginning, and an asterisk and a forward slash at the end, you produce a multi-line comment. This is a great way to go about clarifying what is going on within a specific method, such as if you are writing out an algorithm with cryptic variables. The third and final style of commenting is XML documentation, which requires the usage of 3 forward slashes. This will allow for you to comment about specific methods, properties, fields, and classes. It also has the ability to have specific tags set up to give more context about the XML documented code. The information you put here will show up in IntelliSense when you call the method in another class. All commenting styles are supported by the base C# language and does not only apply to Unity. Use these commenting styles appropriately and keep it so that you, the rest of the developer community, and God knows what your code does. Remember that. Let's take a quick look at how the 2.5 dimension platformer engine is written. As you can see, there is XML documentation all throughout the code, which allows for you to find out what the code does via IntelliSense and Visual Studio. The House Asset Pack only uses standard comments and no XML documentation. When you try to call a method in a new class, you only see the identifiers of the method with IntelliSense with no context on how it should be used. I can showcase this much more clearly. I will utilize Doxygen to generate documentation for both. But before I do that, I suppose I should tell you more about what Doxygen is. Doxygen is a de facto standard tool that is able to generate documentation from annotated source code files with a myriad of programming languages. You can install Doxygen on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. The source is also openly available for you to be able to build it and extend it yourself. The install process for Doxygen is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to cover that in this video. If you want me to do that, let me know in the comment section below. Let me go ahead and set up to build the Doxygen documentation for the house and for the 2.5D platformer engine. I'll speed this part up as it's rather uneventful and nothing of interest really happening at this point. Alright, so now it's time to reveal what happens when you use regular comments or nothing at all when you build documentation from the code. We can see that the members and method names are there, but we have absolutely no clue what they are supposed to be for. That essentially makes the documentation useless, as you would need to pour through the API to really be able to understand what's happening. provided that the naming conventions don't suck. In addition, we will only see the method signatures in Visual Studio. This makes it so that this style of documentation is very useless in the long run. Moving on to the code with the XML Documenting Comments. Let's see what happens from there. We can see just as before the members and method names, but we have the added bonus of being able to see what the members and methods are for. Not only this, but if we were to call any of these methods inside Visual Studio or any IDE with IntelliSense, that we would be able to see this information as well. I hope you have learned the importance of XML documentation in this video, as well as all the other styles of commenting. And I would suggest that you do this with any bit of code that you write in the future. This has been Jesco from Game Dev Made Easy, and the next video will be on 3D models with Blender, so stay tuned for that. I want to give a warm shout out to the Dev Easy team that supports me via donations. Those members are Kupala, Loki, and Coburn. Thank you very much for your continued support.